yesterday we did the chloroplast and parts of it, right? Is that what we did? Okay, so today we're going to look at what actually is happening in the chloroplast, and I want to start you off with the photosynthesis formula. Do you guys know about formulas? Like whenever you do, gosh, I don't know, a simple formula. So whenever you're trying to put two chemicals together and then you say what they yield, I'm trying to think of a simple formula. This is bizarre. I can't think of anything. So say I have hydrogen plus oxygen, and I'm going to say that's going to yield water. Like, do you know what this is? Like how this works? Raise your hand if you're like, I feel confident that I can read one of those. Okay, that's usually what I get. Okay, so first of all, let me just kind of briefly tell you how formula works. Okay, so this is a chemical formula. This is a chemistry thing. It's not much in biology, but we have these two big fat formulas that we need to be able to understand and read. So this formula is not balanced. Okay, do you see it's not balanced because I have like two hydrogens here? Do you see that? And I have two hydrogens here. How many oxygens do I have? Two oxygens here, but I only have one here. So this formula isn't balanced. And so this is one of those things where you would need to put where you're like, okay, so I have, what if I have two waters? Okay, so now how many hydrogens do I have? So if I have two of these, so I have, yeah, here's my little water molecules. So now I have two of them. So now I should have 1, 2, 3, 4 hydrogens, right? So see that? So 2 times 2 is 4. Yeah, you see how to read the formula? And then 2 times 1 is 2. So I only have 2 oxygens. Does that make sense to your brains? Is everyone okay with that? Okay, so but now I have four of these hydrogens and I only have 2. So what can I do? I can get 2 of these, right? So now I have 4 of those, 4 hydrogen, 2 oxygen, 4 hydrogen, 2 oxygen. It's balanced, right? So the first thing you have to know about chemical formulas is you can't make up something and you can't make something go away, right? Like you can't get something out of nowhere and you can't make anything just go away. Like if it's on, so this arrow means yields, and you can think of that as like makes, okay? So two molecules of 2 hydrogen, so 2 of these hydrogen molecules, and 1 of these oxygen molecules, which is basically 2 oxygens stuck together, makes or yields 2 water. So that's how that works. So that's a formula. And basically what it's doing is it's just saying, okay, if I have these reactants, these are called reactants, you should know that. So if I have these reactants and they act together, then I make these products. Okay, so you need to know which side is reactants and which side is products. Okay, so you need to make sure that you know that, all right? So the reactants are the things that you have in the beginning, and when they react together, they yield or they create this product. Okay, are everybody okay with that? That's about as far as I'm going to go with chemical formulas. It's not something that we do a lot of, but guys, when you go to chemistry next year, you'll do a lot of this, and you'll get some that are really like difficult and some that are easier and some that do some weird things, and you'll have to figure out if your products are going to be a solid or a liquid or a gas, and you have to figure it out by how they react together. That's chemistry, okay? And that's what chemistry is. And whenever you're taking your chemistry class, like that's what you can expect. That's kind of what you can expect to be doing a lot of the time, is figuring out if you react 2 things together or 3 or 4 things together, then what are you going to get? Okay? Questions so far? Is everybody okay with that? Reactants and products. Make sure you have that. Okay, because we'll talk about reactants and products in our 2 big formulas we have to do. So now I'm just going to jump into a giant formula. Okay, so that's what photosynthesis is, the giant formula, but it's the same idea, right? The same process. So why are you hissing? Thank you. Okay, so when we think about photosynthesis, so let's okay, when we think about photosynthesis, we can think, all right, we got plants outside and we know that they do photosynthesis, right? There are other things that do photosynthesis too, but plants are the most familiar to us. So let's stick with plants because we know kind of what what they need and what we got. We know we need light, right? Okay, but I don't have a chemical formula for light. Like that doesn't have one of those. It's not made out of elements in the periodic table. So I can't put light in my formula, okay? But what do plants need that I can put in there? They need some water, right? They need some water. So got some water, okay? What do plants breathe in from the air? They breathe in carbon dioxide, right? We breathe in oxygen. Well, they can take in oxygen as well, but they breathe in that carbon dioxide. Okay, now I'm going to tell you what they make. They make glucose. This formula for glucose, you might as well just start memorizing it now, because this formula for glucose will carry with you through any biology you take, but also it carries with you through, there was actually the formula for glucose on the ACT last year, and you had to know that it was, like, they didn't tell you what it was, so you had to recognize it. So you might as well just start memorizing it right now. This is glucose. Glucose is a sugar. Anything that ends with ose is a sugar. So this is a sugar. It's a carbohydrate. It's one, sugars are a carbohydrate. So it's a carbohydrate, and it's a high energy molecule. Okay, so it's got lots of energy in it. Okay, and then they also produce oxygen. All right, so that's what we've got so far. How many carbons do I have right here?
6.
See a problem? How did I make 6 carbons? I only have 1 over there. Like, what the heck? Like, I can't just make some more carbon out of nowhere. Like, that's not how that works, okay? But since this is the only place that there's carbon, I can put a 6 right here, right? So now I have 6 carbons, and now I have 6 carbons. So my carbons are good so far. I'm going to leave my oxygens to the end because I have lots of places where I can fix my oxygens. So I'm not like, I better work on that. I'm going to work on my hydrogen. How many hydrogens do I have here? How many do I have here?
2.
What can I do? I can put a 6 in front of that as well. Okay? Okay, so now, how many oxygens total do I have in my reactant side? I have how many oxygens here? 6. I have 6 here. So if I were to draw them out, right? So if I were to draw out my little water molecules that are like adorable little Mickey Mouses, right? I'm just going to do this for a visual for those of you who haven't experienced formulas before. So that's telling me I have 6 times 2 hydrogens. So I could count their little ears. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 hydrogens. So I can just go 6 times 2, right? That's an understood one, right? That means each water molecule has 1 oxygen, yeah? And so 6 times 1 is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So I have 6 oxygen here. So I have 6 total there. What about here? I have 6 carbon, and how many oxygens here? 6 in the front times the 2 little is going to be 12, right? So I could drop my carbon dioxide too, if that is easier for you to do, but they're going to look very similar to these. You just have carbon instead of, you just have to reassign. But basically 6 times 2. So I have, for this one, I have 6 carbon and I have 12 oxygen total, right? And on this side, I know some of you who have experienced formulas before probably think this is going slow, but hang tight. 6 hydrogen. I'm sorry, I wrote 12 and said 6. And 6 oxygen, it is 12. 6 times 2 is 12 hydrogen. 6 times 1 is 0. Good Lord. 6 times 1 is 6 oxygen. So I have 6 oxygen here, and I have 12 oxygen here for a grand total of 18 oxygen. Okay. Do you see how I counted that? Is everybody okay? Like I said, we're just jumping right into a big fat formula, going from like making water into Crazyville. Okay. How many carbons do I have? 6 carbon here. I have 12 hydrogen. Hydrogen. There we go. And I have 6 oxygen, right? And how many oxygen do I have here?
2.
Okay, so I have 12 hydrogen and I have 12 hydrogen. I have 6 carbon and I have 6 carbon. I don't want to touch this molecule, right? I don't want to add 2 to it or anything like that, because then I got to change all of that, right? My carbon and my hydrogen are good. Like, don't touch it. Don't touch this one. But I have this one over here. So I have 6, 7, 8. I need 18, right? I don't have enough. So what number do I need to multiply this to make it 18?
6.
I've heard 5, 6, 9. I have 6. So I have my 18. So let's subtract our 6 from that. So that gives me 12, right? And I have 2. I need 12, right? Because now I have 12 oxygen plus my 6 here for a grand total of 18. My equation is balanced. Yes?
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things to do in chemistry, by the way. You get to do a lot of that. You get pretty good at it pretty fast. Okay? Cool. So I'm going to erase all my extra stuff. Okay, this is the formula for photosynthesis. This is what a plant needs and how many it needs. And that's what a plant creates and how many it creates. So its reactants are water and carbon dioxide, and the products are glucose and oxygen. Okay? Is everybody okay with that? Everybody good? All right, let's do a simple how it occurs and where it occurs. And we're not going to get too crazy with it, but I'm going to redraw the chloroplast we drew yesterday and show you where stuff happens. And then we'll work on our transpiration lab, setting up our transpiration lab after we've got all the photosynthesis stuff down. So photo means light and synthesis means creating. So basically we're creating sugar using energy from the sun. So that's what photosynthesis is referring to, synthesizing something with light. And you've already learned about the different colors of light and how, some are much better than others as far as energy for the chlorophyll. So got that down. We've learned how we got water up here. Well, that's good. So we have all the parts. We just need to finish it out. Okay, so here's our little chloroplast. And here's our little thylakoids. Here's our double membrane. Yeah, we drew this yesterday. So this is kind of what we did yesterday. And you can add on to your diagram yesterday for what happens where, or you can draw a new one, or you can just watch and see what you want to do. All right, so this is our chloroplast. Now the chlorophyll in a chloroplast is inside on this membrane right here. Okay, so, and it's in little proteins. Okay, so these are kind of going to be where your green stuff is. Okay, so your chlorophyll is in your thylakoid. Okay. So knowing that your chlorophyll is in the thylakoid, you should understand that anything to do with light, like any of our light absorption, all that is going to occur in the thylakoid, right? Because it's the chlorophyll that actually absorbs the light. That's why you have an absorption spectrum for chlorophyll. Because it's like, okay, what color of light does chlorophyll absorb? And how does that, how does that transfer energy? Well, we're not going to quite get into the how does that transfer energy. That's a little up a level. But we are going to look into like where and when. Okay. So in the thylakoid, we have what we call our light-dependent reactions, which makes sense because they're dependent on light. Okay, they occur first. There's 2 steps, photosynthesis. Light-dependent reactions are first. So I'm going to put a little 1 beside it. They occur first, and they're in the thylakoid. and they create energy for the Calvin cycle. Okay, so this is what they're for. Calvin cycle is step 2. Also, I'll write it in a second. So while some of this, I may be using some terms that we don't have yet. Sorry, I messed up. I'm gonna fix it and then I'll get out of the way for you people behind my back. Okay. All right, so the light-dependent reactions occur first. They're in the thylakoid, and they create energy for the Calvin cycle. That's their purpose. Okay, so there's 2 parts to photosynthesis: light-dependent reactions and Calvin cycle. Those are the 2 parts. Okay, and so this one is first, and actually they can occur at the same time, but it just since the light-dependent reactions are creating energy for the Calvin cycle, we have to at least have a little bit of energy to start the Calvin cycle. So we can't get that started can't get the second part started until the first part's created a bit of energy. Okay. Now what it does, what they do in light-dependent reactions is they harness energy from the sun, and then they put that into some high energy electrons and some ATP, some of that cell energy. Okay. And that's what they're doing. Okay. And we'll get more into ATP a lot when we do cell respiration. So actually when we get both parts, photosynthesis and cell respiration, done together, it all like is one big cycle, and it makes a lot of sense, but you have to get one part at a time. Okay, so everyone good? Questions? Good? Okay, I'm gonna put my next bullet over here because it's getting too low for people to see. So you're gonna have another bullet, okay? So it uses water and releases oxygen. Okay, so if I have my formula still up here, sorry, let me get out of your way first. I always forget that I'm blocking the board for some people. Okay, so if you had your formula, so you've got, we've got our 6. What did we do first in our formula? Did we do CO2 first, or did we do water? We did water. Okay. I just want to do my formula the same as your guys's. And you could underline, if you wanted to, you could underline these parts, and you could say this is the light-dependent reactions, and this is released. This is produced product in the light-dependent reactions. Okay, LDR is what we call them. Cool. So you would see then, if you were to draw it in here, you would see water going in, and then oxygen coming out of the thylakoid. Okay. So that's the part of the plant cell. And remember, this is a chloroplast inside a plant cell, right? So just kind of keep in mind where you are in the plant. You're in a plant cell, in a little chloroplast inside the plant cell. And not all plant cells have chloroplasts, right? If it's roots or if they're underneath the ground or fruits or something like that, they don't have chloroplasts. They only have chloroplasts if they're the parts that take up the sun. Okay? Is that good? Anybody have any questions? All right. So that's the light-dependent reactions. So that's going to happen right there in that little thylakoid, and the chlorophyll is going to excite some of the energy-carrying molecules so that those energy carriers can take it to the Calvin cycle, which is next. Okay. Anyone need more time? I'm going to erase the part I wrote at the bottom. All right, so step 2 then. This occurs in the stroma, which is like the jelly part in the middle of the chloroplast. Okay, so step 2 is the Calvin cycle. Okay, sometimes you will see older textbooks, or I don't know, people who haven't updated their curriculum, sometimes you will see them call this the dark reactions. So that's not technically correct. These do occur in the dark. So they're different from light-dependent reactions because they can occur in the dark, right? When the sun goes down or the lights go off, the light-dependent reactions have to stop. Like they don't have the sun's energy to run them anymore. And so they are dependent on light. But the Kelvin cycle, it starts as soon as some energy is formed from the light-dependent reactions, the Kelvin cycle will begin. So, I mean, the sun came up this morning about, well, it's kind of on my way to work, so probably about 7 o'clock or something, the sun came up. That's when photosynthesis would have started if we had green leaves. We're starting to have some green leaves. But that's when photosynthesis would have started, right? So that's when the light-dependent reactions would have been like, oh, we have photons, the light is up. Let's get started. And then at that point, then, as soon as the light-dependent reactions had created some energy, so as soon as they had released their oxygen, took in their water, done all of that, then the Kelvin cycle can begin. And it could have begun at 7:05 in the morning, right? It's not a dark reaction. The difference is whenever the light-dependent reactions produce their energy, they kind of build it up, right? They're really fast. They make a lot of energy really quickly. And so there'll be a lot of energy just sort of stored up. So when the sun goes down, then the Kelvin cycle can keep going until it runs out of energy. It usually runs out of energy about halfway through the night. So I don't really like it whenever curriculum and textbooks and things like that call them dark reactions, because even though they can occur in the dark, they don't have to be in the dark, if that makes sense, okay? I just prefer to call them either light independent reactions or Kelvin cycle. It's usually the easiest way to do it, okay? So Kelvin cycle gets some bullet points too. So this is the second or the final, this is second or final part of photosynthesis. Okay. It happens in the stroma of chloroplast. And let's see. I feel like there was one more thing that I said. What else did I say about photosynthesis? Did you write down what I said? What was the third bullet point?
The third bullet.
Creates energy. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I was trying to like have my points in the same order. So it uses energy created by LDR. Okay. And then here's my little fourth bullet point over here. It uses carbon dioxide and produces glucose, which is a high energy sugar. Happy face, because everyone likes high energy sugar, right? Oh gosh, I'm like writing off the page from my little video. I'm just gonna move it. So then you can underline in your little formula, Kelvin cycle, right? So now we have all the parts of our formula used. That's not too bad, is it? Just have to memorize a little bit of stuff. Not too bad. There's a lot of steps involved. The Kelvin cycle is a really big process, but we certainly don't have to go into that kind of depth in this class. So we just have to know the ins and outs is what I call it. The ins and outs of photosynthesis. So this is going to be happening in the little leaves of our plants, right? Whenever we do our transpiration lab, this will be happening in the leaves of our plants, so keep that in mind. We're going to look at some leaf anatomy during our lab too, and kind of look and see if we can find some of this stuff. I'll try to pull in a water plant where we can look at the actual, see if we can see some actual chloroplasts. Usually we can if I get thin enough leaves. Our plants, our pansies, the leaves are going to be too thick for us to see the actual chloroplasts, but we'll find some thin ones that our microscopes can handle. Okay, questions about photosynthesis. This is just happening in autotrophs, so anything that can create its own sugar, right, from the sun. So that would be plants, some algae. There are a few bacteria that can do this as well. We call them cyanobacteria that that can do this as well. Of course, they don't have chloroplasts, so they have to do it on their membrane. Yeah.
Do we need to memorize this stuff when we quiz on Friday?
Yes. Ah, there we go. It's Tuesday. You got days. Yeah, and we'll review it some more on Thursday. We'll set up our lab and then review and make sure. But I'd review some tomorrow also. And then I don't remember what your ed puzzle. I don't remember what your essay assignment is right this minute, but I'll have something in there to help you review as well. Okay. What questions do you have for me?